Hey everyone, and welcome to my Engager guide. I've been very excited to make this video. I'm very passionate about Engagers myself. So I'm going to do my best to generalize this class and what you should look to do at each stage of the game. I hope that you can appreciate the summary. I can't cover everything for every champ. I'm going to do my best to provide a framework for yourselves to build upon. Without further ado, let's jump into this. Alright, let's talk about Engagers' general identity now. And what Engagers need to do is pressure the game. They want to set up plays, create win cons, provide number advantages, be proactive, and of course find those engagers. Their win con is generally to accrue a laning phase advantage, either 2v2 or whenever your jungler is bot. Pressure from Fog, you're going to hear that a lot. And to translate pressure to mid, unlock Herald for your team, use the Herald to stay on top of pressure and map control, and then using your pressure and your control advantage to set up picks and skirmishes, force face checks by your opponents, stack neutrals, and snowball off of those team fights around neutrals. Okay, moving on to itemization. The main question for the starting item is, do you have auto attack resets in your kit, like Leona and Nautilus do? If you do, then you can consider steel shoulder guards, otherwise let's start Relic. And then you're going to rush tier 2 boots as always, and really try not to delay this with ruby crystals. I've been seeing this a lot. When you sit on around like 700 gold, you don't want to get boots and ruby. You're not going to have tier 2 boots to pressure the map appropriately, fast enough. So for tier 2 boots, there are many options here. Tabis, Mercs, Swifties, Lucidities. Mobies is overrated, too expensive, too useless, post 14 minutes in my opinion. Every engager can consider Swifties. If you're in base with 600 gold, you can't understate the cheapest option when gold is so hard to come by for supports. Swifties is just generally underrated as well. All engagers, they can consider Tabis and Mercs depending on the enemy team comp. If there are 2 to 3 reasons to build one of those defensive boots, then go for it. Lucidities is a great filler item for teamfight engagers, such as Rakan, Ali, Rel, Amumu, who love the flash CDR to get up and set up those multi-man fights. Moving on to Mythic, here you want to decide between Even Shroud and Locket. So here you're going to need to engage in a little bit of critical thinking. Do you want to burst enemies, or do you want to keep your carries alive? Typically, you want to ask yourself which team has the higher sustained DPS. Whoever has the higher DPS does not need more DPS, they need to survive in order to deal that extra DPS. So you want to build Locket in those situations where your carries do more DPS. Typically, if you have a lower DPS comp, you're more about bursting the enemy, which is where Even Shroud comes in. Some people talk about Even Shroud as a tank buster. In my opinion, that's not the situation to build the item. Moving on to situational items now, as always after the Mythic, I'm going to list their options and the reason to build them. For Thornmail, if the enemy has 2 to 3 significant healing champs, such as Vlad, Soraka, Yuumi, Silas, even Gore Drinker plus Conqueror, things like that. Frozen Heart, very efficient item, 2 to 3 champs that use attack speed that you'd want to build it into. Typically, one of those members is going to be the enemy ADC, and then the others can be champs like Camille, Jax, Viego, Kindred, etc. Abyssal Mask, if you verse 2 or 3 AP champs, and it's a decent option as it's affordable and it also has CDR. For Knight's Vow, you want to pair this with Locket when you want to keep your sustained DPS carry alive, if none of the above apply. 20 ability haste, it's also a very relevant buff for the 12.12 patch. Otherwise, it's just a solid filler item in general, and it's kind of like a combo item with Locket. Zeke's, this is going to be paired with Even Shroud when you have an auto-attacking ADC. So if you want to commit to bursting an enemy down, and if none of the above situations apply, go for Zeke's. Anathemas, this is a great item when you verse a fed carry, and you can make use of the tenacity reduction. The best users of this tenacity reduction, you can think of Leona, who has 3 roots or stuns that are affected by tenacity. Amumu, 2 Qs and an ult, same thing. Otherwise, Anathemas can be a pretty decent filler item if none of the above once again. Vigilant Wardstone, this is a broken item as always. Every support, every class, every game, you should look to buy this item level 13 plus if you get there. And the last filler item I want to talk about is Zhonya's. It's quite cheap. Decent filler item, and paired with durability since 12.10, you can buy time for a second rotation of spells, which is quite often a luxury for engagers. The main exception for itemization is Rakan, who wants to build as an enchanter. or at least a weird mix between engagers and enchanters. Moving on to abilities, you want to typically max the engage tool for its damage and its cooldown reduction. Alistair Q, Rel W, Rakan W, Amumu Q, Nautilus Q, etc. And then you max the team fight or the utility/sustain ability. This would be the Nautilus W, the Rakan E, the Rel E, the Amumu E, etc. The main exception here is Leona, who wants to max her W. Alright, let's talk about runes. So the majority of the time here, Glacial Primary is the optimal choice. Glacial, it scales better, providing extra utility in the damage reduction for your allies, and it makes your engages stickier. If you pick your engage moments well, you should not need the Aftershock. I see Aftershock as a band-aid rune for hasty and poor engages, where you need the survivability to minimize your bad play. So after Glacial, you want to back it up with Hex Flash if you can use it. Champs such as Nautilus, Leona, Alistair, Rel should consider this, otherwise Stopwatch. And then Futures if you want Swifties or Lucidities to be able to, bridge that gap between the build path to instantly buy those boots. Otherwise, you want to go Dematerializer and then Cosmic 10 times out of 10. Hex Flash and Demat, they are very strong in the early game in the first 14 minutes especially, which ties into the engager general identity of snowballing early. Aftershock is for lane survivability in volatile 2v2 matchups, when your engage is not going to be disengaged, rather met head-on. Champs that you can consider Aftershock verse are Leona, Pyke, Lucian, Kai'Sa, who really want to brawl in those short trades. Aftershock is also good in lower elos, or if you are new to the engager class, as a band-aid to be able to find out what engage actually is good, and the bad ones you choose, they're not going to be disastrous with Aftershock. I would recommend to not learn to rely on Aftershock though and use it as a crutch, but rather to find better engage windows where they have to disengage. With the same logic, champs that commit harder can use the band-aid of Aftershock more, such as Rel, Leona, Alistair, who really commit forwards and have no way to retreat. If you do go Aftershock, you typically want to back it up with Font of Life, and then the third branch, very flexible here. Versus double range, you can go Second Wind to sustain up. In volatile lane, you can go Bone Plating to tank more. And if you're planning to reach those team fights and sack early, and also to build defensive boots, then you can go Conditioning to help to scale up and meet your power spike there. And then for the last branch, 10 out of 10 times go Unflinching for survivability. For secondary with Glacial Augment, you want to go Resolve 10 times out of 10. You need that Unflinching, and that situational third branch for survivability. And for secondary with Aftershock, you want to go Inspiration 9 times out of 10. The Cosmic for the flash cooldown, and then the Hex Flash if your champ can use it well, otherwise paired with Stopwatch. These are always solid options that can give you value. Engagers, they suffer from secondary rune-itis, something that I have mentioned before, and they can't make use of the Precision or the Sorcery tree at all. There are some fringe uses for the Domination tree, with Ulti Hunter, for champs like Amumu and Rakan, paired with either Cheap Shot or Zombie Ward, who can spike in those mid to late teamfights who really want to be able to ult as much as possible. The main exception for the Glacial and Aftershock dichotomy here is Rakan, who always wants Guardian practically, and then Amumu, who always wants Aftershock, as his second Q provides that lockdown and he wants to be able to stay in the fight long enough for his second Q to come back up. I want to talk about rune shards quickly. If you are planning to have more of a lane presence, you want to go the Adaptive Force and then back it up with appropriate resistances, either double armor or armor magic resist. If you're planning to more so scale up into the mid to late, into team fights, or just to sack lane, then you want to go the Ability Haste paired with the appropriate resistances. Alright, let's move on to the early game now. I want to briefly lay out a general game plan and then to show a bunch of examples so you can see what they actually look like. How you want to start off is that you want to ward mid lane bush, base, Ghost Sweeper at the start of the game, posture to control mid bush throughout the laning phase. You pressure the most from the bushes, and you can look for short trades level 1 to make your level 2 all-in that much scarier. Save your relic stacks for the second wave melees, and actively look for hitting level 2 off of the second wave melees. It's okay if you take some poke if it means you hit level 2 and you can engage on them. Avoid extended trades. Generally you want to look for short trades, back off after using all of your cooldowns if you cannot commit to a kill. Look to freeze the wave on your half of the lane, and this works for both versing enchanters and engagers. As an engager, you want that long lane to kill enchanters, and for the engagers, their lane will struggle to crash the wave and find any engagers themselves if the wave is frozen near your turret. The main exception here is if you're losing in a 2v2 where you can't look for those all-ins, and this will happen a lot, especially on Rakan or Ali who have weak laning phases. And in this case, you want to try that perma war of attrition approach. Constantly shove, avoid trades, distract the enemy and overwhelm them with minions to allow yourself to scale up freely. If you can't do this, and you can't hold the freeze due to this poor matchup, then just stay healthy. Allow the waves to crash and wait for your jungler to gank and relieve pressure. Also, I want to mention trading flashes with the enemy ADC. It's always a good idea if you can do it, especially if you have the Hex Flash, but just in general. Sometimes they respect their level 2, your level 2 spike enough, but you can still force their flash with your flash. Last point, consider diving if the opportunity presents itself. Trading your life for the ADCs is fantastic, especially when you're denying minions. In terms of roaming, you have a lot of power in ganks and skirmishes. Pre 8 minutes, whenever bot wave is frozen by your turret, consider staying bot to all in or to maintain that freeze. If you can't kill, if you can't maintain the freeze, you want to roam and impact the rest of the map. You also want to become a fog warrior. Embrace the fog, stay in the fog. Don't show yourself unnecessarily no matter what. Don't get agitated if they are respecting your move. Being in fog means the whole enemy team has to play different. You can pressure 2 lanes at once being a fog warrior. Only if an opportunity presents itself somewhere do you leave fog and capitalize on it. Typically, your roams as an engager are about sweeping enemy vision around mid and bot river, posturing to gank mid, looking for skirmishes, linking up with your jungler, and placing your pink around mid lane. Especially post 8 minutes when Herald is on the map, you should very rarely be bot. Make it your responsibility, your duty every game to secure a Herald, okay? Meet your jungler on top river when they are pressuring top river too. In 8 to 14 minute section, this is one of, if not the strongest you'll be for the whole game. If you fail to snowball this section of the game, you are just asking to be carried by your team or for the enemy team to outscale you. Okay, before we jump into the replays and the examples that I want to show you, I just want to mention that what we're going to see are examples of good engagers for the most part and solid fundamentals, and what you're not going to see are the hundreds and even potentially thousands of poor engagers that I've had to do throughout my history in League of Legends to learn what a good engage looks like. And so I want you guys to be able to do this for yourself and not be afraid of making mistakes. It's a necessary part to learn. Engagers have to be proactive and find their limits. I chose this game just as an example of what a clean early game can look like in terms of snowballing and helping every lane, every position potentially. So what we're going to notice is that I ward mid bush, I go sweeper, and then we get to start in lane and we're going to thread in that short trade. If they don't respect it, if they do respect it, that's perfectly fine. We're still going to get level 2 anyway. They don't respect it, I find a W. I'm posturing really aggressively here because we have a lot of level 1 kill threat. I want to force her to use both of her summoners so that we can, potentially just kill her or even dive later on. And so we do force both of her sums. And the plan here, I've saved my relics for the second wave, although they're a bit far away for me to use my level 2 spike here. I'm not quite in range of W into flash. So the plan here is to crash this wave and just dive the MF before she gets level 2. And then even if I die, that's perfectly fine. The ADC dies and loses all of these minions, and it's just really rough. However, my ADC just kind of smurfs and kills the enemy ADC, and now I'm very comfortable and just straight up looking to dive the Lux over here. I follow her, flash with mine. We get a couple kills, obviously great start. We're going to kill this wave here, get a tower plate on our way out, and then not overstay base, fix our tempo. And I'm going to path towards mid/bot river from base. And there are a couple of options here. Since it is pre 8 minutes, I can look to path straight bot and prevent MF from crashing this wave. She hasn't based before to spend her gold. And we can just maintain a freeze and prevent them from really ever getting a handle in the game. Or I can react to volatility in the middle of the map here. Obviously this is very volatile, and I deemed in this moment that potentially being around mid could be better. Unfortunately, my mid laner just dies. So potential missed opportunity bot. But what I am going to do is look to move back towards bot and potentially dive on this stacking wave. Once again, we are really far ahead. We have a lot of dive threat. We know that they don't have sums from all of the earlier action. So we can see what happens. They can't trim this wave. We're going to dive on a stacked wave here. And here, I want to be patient with my spells. I want to get the most out of my spells. I want to get a potentially 2-man W and a 2-man E. I'm not going to hastily just jump in right now. I want my Rammus with his Aftershock to tank and give me an easy target to land my W and try to add Lux into that equation. So I get a double W, I get a WE stun, pretty straightforward dive, and then we can dive the Lee Sin. So now I'm happy to tank it and drop aggro on the back end here, and all is good. So this is just quite a strong snowball from our Callista at the moment, which is great. We get another plate, we shove another wave, we get that tempo base. Once again, I'm sprinting mid here. There's a lot of activity going on mid, so I deem that this is a better investment of my time right now versus trying to hold a free spot. We can see if this was even possible. If I pass straight bot here, I could potentially get to lane in time to hold this wave. I could potentially not. Something you're just going to have to feel out if you do go for that option. Okay, so I run mid, I help out in a skirmish. I'm helping to accelerate my mid laner when possible. Let's move forwards a little bit. I am trying to stay in fog when possible as well. They don't have vision of this bot river. They haven't been able to get any prior bot. I do have my sweeper and pink if necessary to clear out their vision, and now it's time for me to play a bit of fog warrioring. However, our bot is so strong, we're in such a dominating 2v2 situation that we can just shove waves into their tower and dive 2v2. If this was a more even game state, I would want my ADC to just hold a freeze over here while I fog warrior between bot and mid. And when they do move to try and crash and break the freeze out here, then I can look to engage from fog. However, this game state is a little bit different. So I'm not afraid of looking for those 2v2 dives. And that's exactly what we're going to do. This should have been a kill. I should have E'd or W'd the Lux before she gets her flash off. So this was a misplay by me. And I don't appropriately play around the enemy jungle and mid being around this area. So this was just really poor by me, all in all. However, we do at least force the enemy mid and jungle to respond to our pressure. Let's keep going. We're now post 8 minutes. And what I should have done here is just meet up with my jungler. Since he is pressuring around top side of the map, I should meet him here and facilitate Herald a lot faster. I do eventually look to do that. I move around. I help to kill the Lee on the back end here. And then I help to, clean up this skirmish. And so you can kind of see how everyone can be happy. Your mid, your jungler, even your top in this top river window. We've snowballed bot. I've used several, I think 3 windows to move towards mid that could have potentially changed the outcome of mid. I've linked up with my jungler when he was pressuring bot, and now especially post 8 minutes when he's on top river. If my jungler wants to do Herald, this is his. So this is what, a relatively clean early game as an engager should and could look like. Okay, now that we've seen a really clean snowball in an aggressive lane, what if we're playing a weaker lane versus a much tougher 2v2 matchup? So let's have a look at this Alistair versus Taric lane. And the main theme here is going to be discipline. Trying to pressure as much as possible, but not making wild and poor engages. So I ward mid bush, I go sweeper. We don't start in lane this time. I'm posturing to control mid bush. If they want to push me out, then I'm forcing them to actually make that effort. See, I'm pressuring as much as possible, even if I am really weak level 1. This would be much scarier if I was like a Nautilus or a Leona or something, but I'm doing my best to pressure. Unfortunately, my Q picks up one of the melees, one of the range minions, so I only have 1 stack for the second wave. I'm still going to try and order the second wave melees here to get level 2 at a decent pace, so that they don't use their level 2 spike too much. Posturing aggressively. Threatening as much as possible. Although Alistair, level 2, he kind of needs level 3 in order to have much kill threat at all. So what I'm going to do is be pressuring from the bushes and, trying to pressure and being more reactive in terms of my abilities. Okay. So I'm controlling the bush, the mid bush. We are able to, have some semblance of prio in the lane. And then Taric makes the first move, and then I am happy to answer it. If I just straight up combo on the Taric, then we're going to lose that trade. I'm going to get hit by both of them. Taric will E on the back end. But he makes the first move, and then I find a two-man combo, find one auto, and then run away as fast as possible. You know, short trades are what you want to look for. And so it was a very effective short trade in the end. Now I know that we're going to get level 3 off of these melees. So I'm posturing aggressively, trying to get level 3, run forwards. So we're navigating a pretty tricky early game so far pretty well. I decide that with our minion wave advantage, I want to try and do a two-step, you know, try to do one initial engage to blow the Guardian and then back off. I'm saving my E. I don't want to fully commit. I can't get my E further up here. Just want to do a bit of a chunk. My Kai'Sa moves very far up for that trade and burns her cleanse, so that wasn't ideal on her front. So here I'm trying to allow this wave to push into us and for Kha'Zix to gank on this window. Given that it is a tricky 2v2 matchup, I would be happy in just, you know, shoving waves pretty hard and not worrying about freezing rather getting through the tricky early game to scale up freely. However, this window, I'm pressuring from fog. I know my jungler's around here, and this wave is around the middle of the lane. So I pick my target. I dodge the E, and then I deem that Taric is the one to go for. I try to layer my cooldowns here. So we get to kill him. Great. We use our jungler's window of pressuring around bot to achieve something. We got a kill. We got some summoners. And what I'm going to really make sure is that we leave the lane in a good wave state afterwards. So I'm looking to shove. I'm pinging to shove here. I use my DMAT on a minion. We crash the wave. And then we're happy. Okay, let's move forwards. I couldn't prevent this crash. I'm going to be pressuring around mid/bot river on this window, making sure they don't have any vision here with that Scryer's Bloom. Looking to crash this stacking bot wave and then potentially do much of the same thing. Once again, pressuring from fog. I know that Taric now has no sums. And so they try to find a stun on my ADC. They do manage. I can't reach this area at all, so I'm just going to use a combo on Taric and then chill out once again. This is a tricky 2v2 matchup for me to play in early. And then my Kai'Sa unfortunately steps up too far and dies. It happens. I'm going to run mid. Pressure around mid. And here I have been trying to stay in fog as much as possible. So they don't know where Alistar is. For all they know, Alistar's basing here, basing here, basing here, or catching the wave over here. However, I'm running mid and looking to use my Hex Flash to pressure around this mid matchup here. Unfortunately, Talia is already mid as well. And so pressuring around mid, force the mid lane as Flash, he ignites me as well. You can definitely say that I helped to, you know, pressure mid and get some kind of advantage or spend resources from the enemy. Moving from base, my jungler kind of gets jumped on. And my mid laner is not doing too hot over there. So I have a couple of options here to either help with the dive mid or to sack mid and try to set up our own play bot. I decide on trying to help out around mid. Trying to ensure that this area is fog as much as possible. And so we're just kind of losing the bot river war now. Our ADC has died too many times. Our mid laner is kind of getting dumpstered on. So we're just going to try and be disciplined as possible, make sure that as much of this area is in fog as possible and try to pick our windows well enough. Okay, trying to fog warrior. Looking to shove this wave. I don't want to freeze because Herald, it's post 8 minutes now. I don't want to be just standing in bot freezing the wave when I can find a window to meet my jungler on top side of the map. Shove wave, control bot river, move towards mid/top river. And as you can see, I ensured that I was in fog bot river here. They don't know where Alistar is. They don't know if Alistar is here or right here. And so you're just forcing the enemy to play perfectly. He doesn't. I find a combo. We find a pretty straightforward pick on the mid lane. Meanwhile, our ADC is fine, just letting this wave push into him. So this game, I wanted to show a more disciplined early game where everything doesn't go perfectly like the last game, where you want to stay in fog, pressure around mid and with your jungler as much as possible, still look for that window to unlock heralds, and to do our best to stem the bleeding that is happening from mid and from bot. Alright, for the next early game example, we are going to be playing Rakan versus Nivea, and the whole lane matchup is really rough. This is going to be a lot about minimizing staying healthy and looking to freeze waves when possible, and also to use our jungler's gank window to try and relieve pressure around bot. So I'm trying to pressure as much as possible, but I just can't maintain the mid bush. I even started E to make sure that we stay healthy, as it would be really hard to take a short trade level 1 versus these range champs as Rakan. So now that I'm level 2, I could potentially look for some short trades. Nivea is stepping too far up. I find 2 autos with a W. So a pretty solid short trade here. Ezreal steps too far forwards. Looking to stay as healthy as possible here. Trying to help my ADC not die for no reason. He's taking a lot of free damage here. Okay, so eventually this wave is going to crash. However, I don't want the wave to crash so that they have the option to let it freeze on their side, and then we're kind of in a really rough spot. So I'm posturing to freeze up here, keep this wave frozen around here, allow ourselves to farm up and scale up freely, and have the lane in as gankable of a state as possible when Lee eventually does move down here. So I'm posturing, trying to pressure as much as possible. Once again, similar theme there, trying to hold this freeze, but it's very hard. Versus that Caitlyn. I look for a short trade, I miss. Obviously that was pretty bad. So this was pretty poor discipline from me in that situation. I should have stayed healthy and kept my cooldowns. However, the lane is still in a good spot, and we're always going to get that window for our jungler to pressure. Whether he clears up, does something around top/mid, bases, comes back bot, then you'll have a window, or whether he clears down and has that window to pressure much earlier. Whichever time it is going to be, I'm going to be ready to make use of it. So I'm healthy enough for this window, and there's a bit of a fight that goes on up here. So we move up to this, force a flash here or there. So that's all fine. And here I assess that Caitlyn is just within kill threat now. She is quite chunked, and I would love to force her cooldowns at the very least. I'm happy to trade cooldowns if possible. I cancel her E, and so now I ignite, and either we kill her or we don't, but we force both of her sums regardless. She does end up dying. And so that was a big turnaround in terms of just damage assessment. I didn't want to W in at level 1 or even level 2 on the Kate unless they're really far out of position. But in that situation, just have a look at it one more time. Caitlyn, she's about half health. And I can find a W. Worst case, I just E out anyway. And this is just going to come from a lot of experience and trying to figure out when you can and can't look for these types of engages. And so what I'm going to try to do on the back end of this is crash this wave into tower. Find that good wave state base. Pass towards bot river from base. You know the drill by now. And deem that there's nothing to be done around mid and rather look to move bot. Ensure bot river is in fog as much as possible. My ADC is just getting absolutely destroyed the whole time. So that's a little bit rough. It happens. I'm going to move back down here. And once again, here my jungler is on bot side. We're going to try to make the most of it. I know that Caitlyn has no flash. You guys are always going to get these windows where your team wants to pressure your lane, and you need to be healthy and have your cooldowns in order to be able to do so. There's no point in just getting dominated in a rough matchup, then being too low with no cooldowns to help out on these windows. So Caitlyn's way too far up. This is a very simple cleanup. We're going to use this proximity to once again crash this wave, find a good wave state, recall, run towards mid / bot river, whatever. I actually decide to run towards top river here. And then I'm lending my hand as well as I can into this fight. teammates are making some poor decisions this game. Of course, that's going to happen. They're just kind of running in and dying one by one. I'm keeping my cool. I'm doing what I know is best. Then the enemy team runs in and dies, whatever. So I deem on the back end here that we can kill the Singed. But my Israel misses a point blank Q. So, you know, we're doing what we can. And so, yeah, for this game, I wanted to show a little bit of wave management using your jungler's windows in order to help out bot and to try and take disciplined short trades when possible. I just wanted to show what being a Fog Warrior can do and finding creative ways to stay in Fog. In this example, we have a pink over here. For this wave, I'm going to, you know, order some of the melees and then I'm going to dip into Fog. And we're just going to have a look at their perspective. So after the melees around here, they don't know what's happening, right? They're not sure if I'm basing or if I'm roaming, or if I'm just, you know, sitting in this bush looking for a pick. And I know that they're not just going to blatantly disrespect myself standing in this bush. So what I'm doing, you'll see from my perspective soon, she eased this for vision. She sees I'm not here, and then she decides that it's safe to move up. However, I was playing around that fog, and we get a couple kills here on the back end, just from being creatively in fog. And so this is what I was doing. I know that they won't just randomly walk up and die, so I'm finding a creative way to stay in fog. I'm going to stand in the edge of this bush on the fog here, so that if she does check, then she could potentially miss out on seeing me, which she does, and then she'll try to move up and crash the next wave or hit the pink, whatever, free double kill. For the mid to late game, I'm going to mostly focus on team fights. I will quickly mention the fundamentals that I want you to keep in mind, but I would heavily recommend you to check out my mid to late game guide. The link is going to be down below just to get a better explanation of this. The three main points you want to keep in mind for the mid to late game is mid first, the 1 mid 2 quadrant rule, and pressure with your jungler. Mid first means looking to pressure through mid first, shoving mid wave, getting a mid ward, and then translating that pressure from mid to a side or to a quadrant or to control for an objective. The 1 mid 2 quadrant rule is pretty self-explanatory. 1 ward mid, 2 wards in a quadrant that you want to control towards, and then pressuring with your jungler. Wherever your jungler is pressuring on the map, you want to typically match him there so that you can actually safely achieve pressure. The main mid to late point I want to make for engagers is that there is a special emphasis on setting up and maintaining your vision advantage to stack those neutrals and to force enemies to enter your control and for you to be able to find and engage on their priority targets by potentially finding creative positions to stay in fog and to find that engage on the enemy. And this is a bit different to the enchanters, where they're happy to engage in a front to back straight up 5v5 fight, where engagers need that setup and that pick and skirmishing power. I'm going to quickly describe what a good team fight looks like, but then I want to show once again more examples for you to see what it looks like. So for team fights, if you find yourself in a team fight, patience is the #1 virtue, okay? Your cooldowns are so long and your committal nature makes it hard to, you know, disengage or re-engage after you have engaged. Therefore, you normally just get one shot at engaging. Make sure it is a good one. A good engage is where you engage on the priority targets of the enemies, their carries, their backliners, preferably several of them, and your teammates can actually follow up. A bad engage is if your teammates cannot follow up, if their cooldowns are down or if they're too far away. So there's no point in getting a massive 5-man engage and dying immediately afterwards if no one can follow up on your engage. You also want to use your HP, your presence, even your life as a resource for fights. If you die and the whole enemy team gets wiped, perfect. If you die to save your ADC's life only, perfect. Get stuck in there with the team and you are not the win con here. Last point, mind mobility spells. Flashes, you know, dashes on carries. If they're on cooldown, your combo is uncounterable. So keep in mind, try to have a rough idea of who's used their dashes or if they have used flash recently. The first game we have here were a Mumu versus Ashe, and the main points I want you to look out for here are mid first, pressuring with our jungler, and being patient on our engage. Okay, let's jump into it. So I'm playing around mid first, trying to clear out some vision, playing on mid wave, just being patient, waiting for my jungler to pressure the map. Currently he is not pressuring the map, he's just farming. So I'm going to try and remain in fog and play through mid as much as possible. I'm still staying in fog, patiently waiting for my jungler. He's now active on the map, and so this is my time to shine. So I flash forwards, and I find the right moment, and then I commit to a fight. I am able to, for the most part, set this up, so that's good. And then we're going to use this mid pressure that we just generated to translate to another area on the map, potentially bot. Unfortunately, I missed that. But we still end up getting that kill. I'm now controlling this quadrant. Getting this mid wave, unfortunately my ADC overstays and dies. I'm just going to speed this part up just a little bit. And there's going to be a fight over here that we can look at. So we catch the Karma out over here. And then my Kha'Zix is in a bit of a pickle here. And I'm engaged champ. And there are several ways that this can go about. And this is kind of the situation that you want to generally avoid as an engager, where you just awkwardly run away and then die without using anything, or even worse if you try to flash away and you still die. So if I do absolutely nothing here, I'm just going to get run down by this Irelia. I have to use my spells, you know, at least engage and give my team an opportunity to, you know, win this fight, or at least not lose horrifically. So I want you to picture what Amumu just trying to run away here and never queuing fours would look like. He's just going to get spam ordered by the by the Irelia and the MF, and eventually just chase down and die. But we use our spells, we put them on cooldown, we die for the team, and sometimes the fight is just going to have to look like this. Okay, so we die, we use everything, we set the team up as much as we can. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, there are a lot of grade points for this game, so we're just going to get stuck right into it in the mid to late. This was a Rakan vs Sona matchup. And you can see us doing mid first, and I noticed that GP is overextended and Kassadin is TPing in over here. And I know that Kassadin doesn't have flash, I've been timing it, and I really want to punish this. He has a shutdown and he has no flash, so I'm really being vocal about what I want here. I wait for his mobility, as in his ult, and then I commit my cooldowns. So if I was an Alistair or a Rel here, I wouldn't use my initiation combo, my W, whatever, before the Kassadin ult. Let's keep going. This next fight here, it's quite messy and extended, but the main point I want you to take away from this fight is to stay in the fight as long as possible, help out as much as possible, use your life, use your HP, your mana, everything as a resource, as it could make the difference at the end of the day. I could easily just press space over here at the end, but the fight is still going on. I still want to provide as much as humanly possible. So I'm not quite able to save my teammate there, but we're able to kill the Wukong on the back end. And eventually I'm going to find a base. And there's going to be one more really good fight to have a look at. So here is where we're kind of controlling around bot river for the upcoming dragon, and I want to be able to find and engage on the backline. However, there I noticed that their Wukong is very far up where he shouldn't be, and what you'll notice is that I'm not committing my ult or my flash to like really just one-shot this Wukong. I'm fine just Wing him and then playing it slow, letting him get chunked out, letting the fight just kind of, you know, evolve for a little bit, playing it. So this is kind of like a two-step. And this might be a little bit harder to do on other champs. If I was like an Alistair, I would combo, I wouldn't potentially use my E, I would just, you know, fish out, not hard commit. And I still know that their ADC doesn't have flash, that the Wukong doesn't have flash. So I'm comfortable in just starting this fight, and now they have to back off. And this is the time where I really want to fully commit to the fight on the back end. So here's my first W. I'm kind of chilling out for a little bit, and now I'm looking for that engage on the priority targets, flashing on the back line, and then they just get blown up. And so there's a lot of different things that you can take away from this in terms of just taking a small isolated fight at the start and then waiting until your cooldowns are back up for that full engage, and being like patient but decisive when the right moment presents itself, when they have to run away. When I do have flash and ult, I've saved my ult. And I'm going to be able to find that flash W on the back line eventually. And this is just going to come with time. I just wanted you to get an appreciation of what this could potentially look like. I want to do something a little bit different for the last few clips for mid to late examples. I've shown you clips from my Diamond Smurf. I've shown you clips from my Challenger main. I want to show you some clips now from my past competitive professional career, where I'm playing with pro players, obviously against pro players. First game we're going to do, we're at Rift Rivals, and I am the Alistair, and we're going to be doing a lot of the same things, okay? We're playing through mid, pressuring mid first, setting up the objective. The dragon is coming up next. So they either concede dragon, or they're going to contest, and I'm going to find the best possible engage to do so. And note my position, how I'm not just standing with my team over here looking to front to back. I am creatively finding an engage on the back line. I'm not just standing in the bush here either. Otherwise, Shen's sweep would have spotted me out and they would have been able to disengage. I'm finding a creative solution to being in fog and then finding an engage on the back line. They have no idea I'm here. I find a three-man combo, fight's done. And this is something that, you know, can work at any level. Obviously, professional games are a lot more structured, but you can apply this creative flank onto the back line very easily in your own games, if it works on other pro players, right? Okay, we're going to skip forwards a bit here. And now we are controlling around Baron. Going to skip forwards a little bit. Trundle is out of position. So here I could easily combo the Trundle and just kill him faster, but I know that I only get one shot, I only get one combo, I only get to press Q once in a fight, so I'm not going to Q the Trundle, I'm not going to just try and get an assist or something. I'm going to save my Q to get a two-man Q there, which is obviously a lot better than just comboing someone who's already going to die. So I just wanted to point that out as well. Okay, next example, and this was the grand final of the OPL in Split 1 2018, and we were down 2-0 in this series. This is game 5, so we are on the precipice of a reverse sweep. The stakes are insanely high. The winner goes to MSI. And a lot of the same stuff, right? We got mid first just then. And then let's see how this team fight plays out. So my Vlad has a great flank here, and he flashes on the back line, forces the carries summoners, extremely important, and chunks them out. And so this can go, we can look at this a couple of ways. I could potentially be with Vlad over here, and combo with him on the back line right now. Or maybe the enemy team has the confidence to move up here because they see Rakan over here. It's hard to tell. But either way, Vlad initiates really well at the start, and then I'm holding my cooldowns. I'm not initiating right now because my Zac is in blobs and my top laner is TPing. So they wouldn't be able to assist in this whatsoever. I'm trying to find that right moment, and then my Zac comes alive, my Poppy is now able to enter the fight as well, and then I find that combo. So let's just watch it one more time. Great start by the Vlad. I'm going to find that secondary engage when the time is right. And then the team's able to follow up and clean up. All right, let's talk about common mistakes. Staying bot 2v2 for too long, not securing your team heralds, not achieving anything, not translating your pressure to accelerate mid and jungle, kind of just leaving the rest of the map on an island and hoping for the best. Next point, teamfight engaging when teammates aren't in range or have no cooldowns, we've talked about this. And also not staying healthy 2v2, losing lane pressure by being low, not being able to capitalize on your jungler when he does have a window to help you out. Also randomly showing instead of embracing that fog warrior mentality. People sometimes just run out of bushes and aren't able to find an engage because the enemy's not out of position, and now they've just ruined the fog warrior. Flashing to survive after a fight has been decided as well. Flash is a very important cooldown for a lot of engagers, and it will be important for future fights. Another point is to be too far on the other end of the engage spectrum. You know, missing engage opportunities and hoping the enemy pretty much runs into your nexus before you decide to fight them. You'd rather want to try and fail and learn than never use your kit before it's too late. And this is one of the main things I want you to take away from this video. Obviously, I've done this for a very long time, and I'm showing you the good engages. There are a lot of bad ones. I've done them. You need to do them. You know, just start developing a tough skin to making mistakes and for your improvement. Last point is not really accepting reality and needing to concede level 2. Sometimes you're going to need to back off, stay healthy, and you're not going to be able to get that level 2 with the relics on the second wave melees. Okay, time for the engager synopsis right now. Engages that are flourishing more so than others at the moment are those reliable team fighters, like Amumu, Rakan, and Rel. Alistair is a bit less of a reliable engage, he more so needs to fight those flanks. Powerful laners are struggling to achieve that part of their identity and powering through their lanes, such as Nautilus and Leona. In general, though, engagers, they're very challenging, they're very rewarding, and you learn more about the game, how to take control, how to be proactive and force the game to be played at your own pace. You don't have to rely on the enemy to make poor engage decisions to win. However, engagers require follow-up and trust from your team and a win con away from yourself. So if you fall behind, you can feel very useless very quickly. You have many more variables and the responsibility of finding that right engage to worry about in fights. The nature of solo queue, it rewards passivity, scaling, extended fights. So to summarize, engages are harder to climb with in solo queue, for sure. But I believe you'll learn more about the game and become a better player by playing this class. And this doesn't necessarily mean you need to one-trick them, just understanding what they want to do and developing some of the skills in order to achieve success on engagers can be fantastic for your climb. So engagers, weak short-term, strong long-term. Thanks for watching, everyone, and I hope to see more engage play despite the durability patch. And a big shout out to all of my lovely viewers and subs. We just reached the 1K milestone. I am so stoked about that. So please consider liking and subscribing, but only if you enjoyed the content. And if you are serious about taking your play to the next level, to sign up for the School of Support for educational content and coaching. All the links are going to be down below as usual. Thanks again and goodbye.